All right, let's go ahead and get into the first one, which has to do with the Internet Archives. Now, a lot of people might not know the Internet Archives, but it's extremely important because many of the people that do research and get their information, backstories, back history, and all that type of stuff, use it. And then you read the content that they put out based on it. And so that's why this is important. So let's take a look. Says the Internet Archive loses its appeal of a major copyright case. It says the Hatchet versus Internet Archive was brought by book publishers objecting to the archive's digital lending library, and you can see the appeal paper right there. Now we're not going to go through that whole thing because, as we know, legal documents are long and boring. But the Internet Archive is an online area where you can get physically scanned in books and practically rent them. It's an online library for people to have access to any type of book, whether it's a book that's out now or it's a book that, again, you can't find in libraries anymore, or books that have stopped being published and you can't find anywhere to buy them or rent them anymore or anything like that. It's a giant online database for different types of books for people to go and read that may not have access to libraries or a way to buy them or anything like that. And so I use this all the time. I use Internet Archive all the time whenever I'm seeing references to books and whatnot that I don't have the ability to go and buy. I can't find them to buy. I don't have access to a thing like a library. I can go onto the Internet Archive and I can find stuff from there. I have done so many different videos where I've shown clips and pictures of pages I got directly from Internet Archive. It allows me to go back in history and find out information on a lot of this stuff that I don't normally have access to. And many other researchers and journalists, a lot of independent people do this as well, where they go into the Internet Archive and find this as well. But now we have giant publishers who losing no money whatsoever, basically filing a copyright infringement thing against Internet Archive because they don't want people to have access to that information. This is dangerous. This is very dangerous. It says the Internet Archive has lost, excuse me, has lost a major legal battle in its decision that could have a significant impact on the future of internet history. Today, this came out on the 4th. The verdict came down on the 4th. Today, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled against the long-running digital archive, upholding an earlier ruling in Hatchet versus Internet Archive that found that one of the Internet Archive's book digitizations project violated copyright law. Notably, the appeals court ruling rejects the Internet Archive's argument that its lending practices were shielded by fair use doctrine, which permits for copyright infringement in certain instances, calling it unpersuasive. In March 2020, the Internet Archive, a San Francisco-based nonprofit, launched a program called the National Emergency Library, or NEL. Library closures caused by the pandemic had left students, researchers, and readers unable to access millions of books, and the Internet Archive has said it was responding to calls from regular people and other librarians to help those at home get access to the books they needed. Basically, this is a giant database that allows anybody, like if I have a book that could fill a need for somebody and it's not on the Internet Archive, I could take it, I could scan each page and upload it to that, and then you give credit to the author, the publisher. You add links to, if you're still able to purchase it, add links to where you can go and buy the book, and you have all this stuff. And it's a good research tool for anybody who needs this stuff, especially since in the case of 2020, when all the libraries and stuff were closed, it allows students to still have access to it. They're trying to get rid of that. As of right now, I believe there's been over 500,000 books that have been removed from Internet Archive, and it's still going up. One of them happens to be 1984. Interesting, isn't it? The NEL was an offshoot of an ongoing digital lending project called the Open Library, in which the Internet Archive scans physical copies of library books and lets people check out the digital copies as though they're regular reading material instead of ebooks. The Open Library lent the books to one person at a time, but the NEL removed this ratio rule, instead letting large numbers of people borrow each scanned book at once. The NEL was the subject of backlash soon after its launch, with some authors arguing that it's tantamount to piracy. In response, the Internet Archive within 2 months scuttled its emergency approach and reinstated the lending caps. But the damage was done. In June 2020, major publishing houses, including Hachette, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, and Wiley, filed the lawsuit. Now, this is fascinating because the people who are up in arms are either the authors who basically they've made a total of $15 off of their stuff that nobody's looking at their books on the archive to begin with, as well as major publishing companies that are already swimming in money that really aren't losing anything. So basically you have two people that will benefit in no way possible from this that have now gone against the Internet Archive, which is a giant, just absolutely very important thing for us in today's day and age. That should be telling. That should be telling of what's going on with this. Now, it says in a statement, Internet Archive Director of Library Services Chris Freeland expressed disappointment in today's opinion about the Internet Archive's digital lending of books that are available electronically elsewhere. We are reviewing the court's opinion and will continue to defend the rights of libraries to own, lend, and preserve books. Dave Hansen, Executive Director of the Authors Alliance, a nonprofit that often advocates for expanding digital access to books, also came out against the ruling. Authors are researchers. Authors are readers, he said. Internet Archive's digital library helps those authors create new works and supports their interest in seeing their works be read. This ruling may benefit the bottom line of the largest publishers and most prominent authors, but for most it will end up harming more than it will help. I'm in full agreement with Hansen here. No idea who he is, but I'm in agreement with that statement. The Internet Archive's legal woes are not over. In 2023, a group of music labels, including Universal Music Group and Sony, sued the archive in a copyright infringement case over a music digitization project. That case is still making its way through the courts. The damages could be up to $400 million, an amount that could pose an existential threat to the nonprofit. Now, I don't know anything about that lawsuit or what's going on when it comes to that, so I can't provide anything on that, but if they're going after him on that way, it sounds like this is a multi-pronged assault on Internet Archive to just completely get them entirely shut down. So again, but I don't know any details about this music stuff that's going on with that. I only know about the books. It says the new verdict arrives at an especially tumultuous time for copyright law. In the past 2 years, there have been dozens of copyright infringement cases filed against major AI companies that offer generative AI tools, and many of the defendants in the cases argue that the fair use doctrine shields their use of copyrighted data in AI training. Any major lawsuit in which judges refute fair use claims are thus closely watched. It also arrives as a moment when the Internet Archive's outsized importance in digital preservation is nearly felt. The Archive's Wayback Machine, which is another tool that I use all the time. If Internet Archive ends up going down, the Wayback Machine goes down as well. That's how I'm able to go and find so much information that's been scrubbed from these websites, is through the Wayback Machine. And many researchers and journalists do this all the time. I don't know how many times I view independent journalists' stuff and they have links to the Wayback Machine because that's the only place that you can find that information. I use it all the time, every single week I'm on that thing. And if they take down the archive, so does the Wayback Machine. So we've got books that are going to disappear. We've got all of that history, internet history, that's going to be completely wiped out. This is going to restrict so much information if this happens. This is a much deeper threat on the censorship stuff. Everybody wants to talk about, okay, YouTube's taking videos down. People can't say anything on Facebook, you know, all that type of stuff. That's small fry compared to taking this stuff out. You take this stuff out, we are running blind at that point. We are absolutely running blind. That, in my opinion, is more dangerous than having something to say on Facebook, which is still bad. Don't get me wrong, that's still bad. But in my opinion, this is a lot more dangerous because we're going to lose access to a lot of information that's going to leave us in the dark. It's going to heavily leave us in the dark. So it says it also arrives at a moment when the Internet Archive's outsized importance in digital preservation is nearly met. The archive's Wayback Machine, which catalogs copies of websites, has become a vital tool for journalists, researchers, lawyers, and anyone with an interest in internet history or just history in general. While there are other digital preservation projects, including national efforts from the U.S. Library of Congress, there's nothing like it available to the public. See? They want to get rid of the nonprofit, the community, the people run group of Internet Archive and the books and the Wayback Machine. They want to get rid of that so they can hand control of it back to the government, which will restrict access to how much? Well, anything of importance. We see that they already rewrite history. So they're going to get rid of all this stuff. Any content that they don't deem fit could just poof, gone. And they're already doing it. This is really bad. This is really, really bad. From what I understand, there's still some stuff that they're working on to try and do this. But if they get taken out, we're in for a world of hurt when it comes to actually understanding what's going on right now. We're in for a world of hurt. So what we got is, this is an attempt to remove historical accounts, broad spectrum, to remove historical events accounts, whether it's newspaper articles, which the Internet Archive has that too. Old, like I've gotten some pictures of like 1940s newspapers and stuff from Internet Archives. I'm able to read little dime store, those dime store stories and dime store news reports and stuff that you would get at the gas stations back in the day, 50s, 60s, 70s and whatnot. I've gotten information from those things because those were uploaded to Internet Archive. Different types of books that you can't find in a library, and you can't find them published anywhere anymore for sale. That's the only place that you can find it because somebody had that book and uploaded it there. I've gotten information from that type of stuff as well. And they're trying to get rid of all that. All of that, not to mention trying to get rid of the internet history of pages when it comes to going back to different internet pages that were scrubbed. Like I just did the thing on the Telegram guy. And it's scrubbed from the main website. You can't find it on the website. I had to go back into the Wayback Machine to find the page, what it was before he got scrubbed from the listing on the Young Global Leaders page. That's all going to be gone too if this goes through and they shut them down. Plus, we've got the massive redirection for research material. They want to redirect people towards things like Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia and all these controlled information things that, what can you trust on there? Not much. Yes, there's some truth there, but again, what do you know is true and what is not, especially if you can't go back into the actual records and look this stuff up. This is also an attempt for destruction of culture, which is a major thing that they do when it comes to Marxist attempts, Marxist values, is they want to destroy culture. They also want to control culture. That even goes back all the way back to Plato. I talked about that on the Psy-War series, talking about how Plato wrote that saying that the rulers, those who reign, want control of the culture, so they're able to manipulate and maneuver society in the direction that they want to do. Well, when you start getting rid of culture, you start getting rid of creative creative endeavors and works of art and music and images and all this type of stuff, books. When you start getting rid of that stuff, you start caging the lion. so to say, because it's the creative stuff that allows us to be able to have access to a different type of freedom within our brain. And when you restrict that, which is something that communism and Marxism has always done, it's part of their ability to take over countries. You restrict the culture because it demoralizes people. And so when you do this, you're restricting the access to all of this literature, all of these the written words that people have put down. You're starting to do that as well. As we know, I wouldn't be shocked. I should have looked. I wouldn't be shocked if Fahrenheit 451 was removed from the Internet Archive, which is all about that, having the firemen go around and torch books and the houses of those who have books. They want to restrict that. So this is a digital version of that. Plus, you go throughout history. Yeah, you got Nazi Germany that was doing it. One of the other ones that I found fascinating was, as you go back to 213 BC, there's a Chinese emperor by the name of King Shi Hong. I actually had to write that down because I can't remember anything. And he ordered back then in 213 BC, he ordered a book burning ordinance as well to go throughout history. One, he didn't want there to be any back history of him because he wanted to be known as the first ruler. So he wanted to alter history, but also at the same time, he wanted to get rid of any information, historical stuff, written words of anything that was counter to the government that he was trying to control. And so he wanted only the books and the written words of government permitted information. Everything else was ordered to be destroyed and basically lit on fire, be burned. And so you can see the element here, and we just read it in the article about the U.S. Library of Congress. They want control of this type of program, and that's going to, again, limit access to anything that doesn't fit the narrative of the government. Again, we have been having this massive conversation for the censorship stuff that's coming down the pike. But we just seem to be going on when it comes to political censorship and things on medical censorship and stuff like that of today's verbal and social media type of stuff. And that's bad. Obviously, that's bad. They want to control the here and the now when it comes to that. But it's extremely dangerous, in my opinion, when you have limited access, or in this case, they're attempting to outright destroy it, to anything when it comes to historical stuff that is used for research, to have any idea of what happened before the here and the now and what has been approved. Look at the textbooks in schools. That's what they want to turn our entire country into when it comes to that. The Internet Archive, if they go down, we're in trouble. It's a matter of time. They're going to go down eventually, but to have it go down now, oh boy. And so I think this is something that desperately needs to be talked about more. We need to get people, because you can go and download these PDF files of this stuff. We need to get people that are backing this stuff up. I've gone through and I've gotten a few. I just don't have the time to go through and I never know what I'm going to need in the future. That's the problem. I've gone through and gotten a few of the stuff that I use often, but man, things like the Wayback Machine, if you come across something that you didn't know that you were going to come across, I mean, how are you supposed to save hundreds of thousands of pages of this stuff? You know, it's just not possible. And they allowed this to happen, and now they're going to try and take it down. So I wanted to let you guys know what's going on with this. This is absolutely a digital book burning that's happening right in front of our eyes, and people have no idea. You're going to feel it. You may not use Internet Archive, but you're going to feel it, because a lot of your independent researchers and journalists that do use it, when they don't have access to that, you're going to start noticing, because they're not going to be able to start giving back history like they did before.